Well, many people decided to live the life, go to college, graduate, and get a job, normal adult stuff. I have been stuck with playing card games for basically my whole life. I've been pretty good at card games since I started like 7 years ago. I've only gotten better throughout the years. Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, you name it. I've played them all and I've had success in all of them. Obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh is my main game, but here I'm gonna give you some tips so that you can improve in any game you play. It's just basic TCG knowledge. The first step to improving at any card game is to always identify your win conditions. In Yu-Gi-Oh, your win conditions are either you drop your opponent's life from 8,000 to 0, or you try and draw a card from your deck and it has no cards in it. That automatically gives you a loss. You have to have a game plan before you even get started. And most importantly, you have to know when to give up on that specific game. Yu-Gi-Oh has really strict time rules and it really sucks to get taken advantage of in them. But most of the time you can solve this by just scooping up early. When do you scoop? When you have no win condition. For example, you've entered into a grinding match with an opponent. Your opponent has 2 monsters with 3,000 attack. You've wasted most of the resources in your deck. The highest attack monster in your deck is 2,500, and your extra deck, the highest attack monster is 28. You have no removal. Can you win this game? No, you cannot. It's time to scoop up and go next. That way you can save up time, reassess your situation, and try and get them next game. This also applies to when your opponent makes their board or is in a state where you cannot win. It's better to just scoop it up before they even see what you're playing. You know what they're playing, you know what their deck does. They don't know what you are playing, they don't know what you do. So it's better to catch them in the surprise factor. This is really important in game ones of any match. Another tip to help you win more games is to use your good cards properly. I've seen this many times. People just play their cards because they can be played. It's really rare that players assess the situation and try to come up with the best way of using a card. For example, triple tactics talents. An opponent activates a monster effect in the main phase. You are going second at the moment, and they have a few negates on board. You can either just do the triple tactics talents without giving much thought, which can work, or you can try and make a game plan so that triple tactics talent can really maximize its effect and its power against your opponent's board. This also applies with Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. This also applies with cards like Super Poly. Any card. We do have to realize we're playing the same game as our opponent. Yes, it comes mostly down to luck, but we have to control what we can control. We cannot control the cards we draw. We cannot control the cards our opponent draws. What we can control is how we use those cards against our opponent and against what the opponent has against us. Like, stop making the excuse of, my opponent drew everything. It's just I had a bad hand. It happens that the opponent really has a really strong set of cards in his hand, and you really cannot do much about it. But I've been in this situation, and I know many people in this situation winning with really bad hands. So know how to play your cards, know your deck, know the matchup, so that you can maximize what you do against your opponent. Also, be mindful of hidden effects. Read the cards before taking a decision. That's the most important rule of any card game, right? That way you don't get beaten by hidden effects. I'm an experienced player, and it still happens to me. I enter the battle phase, try and kill a monster, they protect it with a hidden banish effect in graveyard. Like, always be prepared for everything. Also, filter what your opponent is saying. Like, good players take advantage of medium players by getting them to listen to what they're saying. These types of players make decisions based on what their opponent is saying to them at the moment. Simple things like, are you gonna activate that effect? X card is once per turn, right? What are you gonna search for that card? All these are example of your opponent trying to take advantage of the verbal part of the game to try and make you make an action. The only reason I know about this is because I do it. And many people, many good players do this to take advantage of the lack of knowledge on their opponent's part. Learn the meta. Learn the meta. It's not that hard. It's not that hard to know what the meta is usually looking like. Why is this important? Because if you are asking what a specific card does when your opponent is playing it, you're already in the disadvantage. You've got to make sure that you know what you're playing against. You've got to make sure to know what your cards do against your opponent's deck. But Mitchell, there's like 300 decks in the meta. I can't know what all the cards do, right? Well, yeah, but you can at least learn what the top 10 decks are doing at the moment. You can learn what the card do, and you can learn how your deck fares against it. That way you have a game plan before you even start. This insight can really be applied into any TC you play and into any game you play. Learn the rules, learn what the rest of the decks do. I assure you that implementing this into your mindset will just make a big difference at the time of playing locals, playing YCSs, playing regionals. Lastly, always remember, misplays happen. We all misplay. But how you act after the misplay is what makes a good player from a mediocre player. It just separates the tiers, right? If you make a misplay, be mindful of it, but just go to the next step. You cannot stay with that misplay. It's already in the past. You cannot change it. What you can do is try and come up with a game plan for the rest of the duel so that you can win that duel after making that miss. Most of the time, your opponent doesn't even know you misplayed. The moment they realize you misplayed is the moment that you make a facial gesture or some type of, something. And believe me, we will take advantage of that every time. Be mindful of what you're doing and ensure you're gonna get great results. So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.